Hello guys and gals, and this is part 4 of Fantasmagoria by Julia Bruce. And it says on the cover, an atlas of fabulous creatures, enchanted beings, and magical monsters. Now, what we left off with last time was, well, we went a little bit too far on this one. Okay. We left off with famous wizards, and we are going to continue on from this thing, and we're going to talk about djinns. I think the D is silent. It's like the G in, what is it, quiche? Q-U, the Q-U in quiche, or something like that. It's got a silent letter, so I think it's djinn. It's where we get the word genie. So, yeah, this is where we're going to start. But first, this is a book that's copyright 2009. And, yeah. Okay, so we're going to just continue this. Let's start out with the fantastical fact. Right here. I like these because they're usually easy to read. Okay, it says, in Moroccan folklore, the Meest der Iwouden is a mysterious goat-shaped genie that haunts toilets. So you got a goat genie haunting your toilet. Okay, that sounds kind of cool, actually. Anyways, I might have to do more research on that, but that's cool. I don't know if I pronounced that right either. Okay, so we're talking about haunted toilets. That's okay. I'm cool with that. Okay, it says here, Djinn, often called genies, are magical beings, both dangerous and powerful, born of fire. They have the ability to grant wishes, but they can also trick the wisher and turn their desires against them. So be careful what you wish for. It says right here, we're going to go here. Traditionally, magical djinn were often imprisoned in small objects such as bottles or lamps and released when the stopper was removed. Okay, so there's that guy. He released the stopper, and then there's the genie. Okay, got it. Okay, let's read this. It says, there are several tales about djinn, including Aladdin, the fisherman, and the djinn, and Sinbad the sailor in a famous collection of Arabian stories called The Book of 1001 Nights, or Arabian Nights. See page 39. We will in just a minute. In Aladdin, there are two djinn, one trapped in a ring and the second, more powerful genie, inside an old lamp. They are released when somebody rubs the ring or the lamp and grant wishes in return. In the other stories, in the other two stories, Sinbad and the fisherman release angry djinn from sealed jars. Djinn have a power to grant wishes, but usually only 3. When people use their wishes unwisely, it can have disastrous effects, and the djinn can sometimes willfully misunderstand wishes, causing them more harm than good. Stories about djinn and genies were probably inspired by the Quran, the holy book of the religion of Islam, which tells of a race of beings called the Djinn. These Djinn are a bit like humans, but stronger and not so clever. They eat, marry, and die just like humans, but live much longer. The Djinn were made by Allah for smokeless fire and are usually invisible. They live in remote forests and mountains. Some Djinn harass people, but most don't bother humans. I did not realize that, but that's kind of neat, a neat little fact. Here, left. Clever Shahrazad kept her murderous husband guessing with her exciting stories for more than 3 years, thus ensuring her survival. Okay, let's read about the fisherman and the djinn. The genie, rather. A fisherman casts his net into the sea and pulls out a strange brass vessel. When he removes the stopper, a huge plume of smoke comes rushing out and took the form of a giant genie. The genie said he had been trapped in the vessel for hundreds of years. When he was first imprisoned, he told the... when he was first imprisoned. Yeah. He told the fisherman he had promised himself he would grant anyone who released him any wishes they wanted. But as the years passed, the genie got angrier and angrier and more ruthless, until in the end he decided he would kill anyone who released him, only giving them a chance giving them a choice about the way they would die. Terrified, the fisherman kept the genie talking while he tried to think of a way to avoid being killed. Finally, he came up with a brilliant idea. The genie was vain and full of his own importance, so the fisherman started to express doubts that such a huge and powerful being as himself could have possibly have fitted in such a small vessel. Infuriated that the fisherman did not believe him, the genie disappeared back into the vessel to prove it. In a flash, the fisherman picked up the stopper and firmly sealed the brass vessel, again with the genie inside. So, we have that. And we also have here Scheherazad's Arabian Nights. I've heard this story a few times, and we're going to see how this version goes. There once was a great king whose wife was unfaithful to him. He was so enraged that he had her executed, and then he began marrying a succession of new wives, only to execute them the morning after the wedding. Eventually, he decided to marry Scheherazade, the daughter of the chief minister. Scheherazade was clever. Scheherazade was clever than her predecessors. On their wedding night, she began to tell the king a story, but when she got to a particularly exciting part, she stopped. The king was so curious to hear the ending of the story that he put off the execution so that she could tell it to him the next day. The next night, she finished the tale and immediately started a new one, again stopping halfway through. The king had to delay the execution once more. This went on night after night, and Scheherazade related fairy tales, comedies, tragedies, and poems featuring heroes, Djinn, princesses, and monsters. In this way, she managed to stay her execution for 1001 nights until the king died. Okay, we are moving on to Spiritualists. Spiritualists. Well, let's see what this is all about. Okay, let's go over this picture first here because it looks fascinating. It says the use of muslin cloth to represent ectoplasm was a trick used by spiritualists. Okay, I'm having trouble reading this for some reason. It was a trick used, but not a very convincing one. So they used some kind of cloth to make it look like ectoplasm. Okay. Okay, it says, at a Victorian seance, you might expect strange sounds, noises, moving objects, and even the appearance of a spirit. Okay, and that's what they're having there, is a seance. Okay, let's read this. How would you speak to the dead? Many people have claimed to be able to hear and communicate with the spirits of those who have died and call themselves spiritualists or mediums. But do they really have a hotline to the grave? 150 years ago, there was no such thing as television, movies, computers, or even radios. So people had to find other entertainment. Meetings where people attempted to communicate with the dead, became a popular pastime in both Europe and America. Supernatural visitors. At a seance, everyone would sit around a table and link hands or touch fingers to form a circle. The leader of the seance, called a medium, would ask everyone to concentrate hard while he or she tried to make contact with the dead. Mediums might use what they called their spirit guide, a friendly spirit who would lead them to other dead souls. Often the people attending would hope to communicate with someone they knew who had died. All sorts of weird things might happen at a seance. The table might move, objects might appear to levitate, rise in the air. The medium might convey messages through strange automatic writing, and there might be unexplained knocking sounds and other noises. Some witnesses claim to have seen shadows of the spirits themselves or a ghostly white substance called ectoplasm oozing from people's heads. Most people were convinced that these events were real, but others were certain that it was all trickery. Some, but not all, of the mediums were exposed as frauds. Clever devices or hidden accomplices were often used to move furniture, make noise, or pose as spirits, and ectoplasm usually turned out to be egg white, chewed up paper, or fine muslin. There were even people sent to prison for faking supernatural events at seances. Okay, let's talk about the Fox sisters now. The craze for spiritualism was sparked off in the USA in 1848 when two sisters, Kate and Margaret Fox, reported hearing strange rapping sounds in their home in New York. The girls developed a form of communication in which a certain number of raps might indicate yes or no, or signify a letter of the alphabet. They said the noises were coming from the spirit of a murdered peddler whose body was buried in the cellar. Kate and Margaret began holding seances where all sorts of supernatural events occurred, and their fame grew. A new movement called spiritualism grew up around them, and attending seances became very fashionable. Later, the sisters confessed that they had faked the rapping sound by secretly cracking their joints. But as for the murdered peddler, almost 50 years later, in 1904, a skeleton with a peddler's tin was found bricked up inside the Fox's cellar wall. Wow, so there really was a peddler in the cellar. Okay, now let's talk about poltergeists. Books are flying around, and okay. Poltergeists. Poltergeists are relentless, sometimes violent spirits that move objects. They will sometimes focus on one particular person, most often a teenage girl. Poltergeists are German for knocking ghost. And poltergeist hauntings often involve knocking or other strange noises, as well as the moving or throwing of objects. Poltergeist activity has never been satisfactorily explained. Some instances have been shown to be hoaxes. Others are thought to be caused by people using psychokinesis, movement of objects with the power of their mind. Okay, and it says here, the mysterious movement of objects apparently of their own accord, caused by poltergeist, telekinesis, or trickery. Okay, let's go on to shamans. Shamans. Let's start up here at the top. Enter the world of shamans, people who can communicate with spirits. Shamans can use their special abilities for good or for evil, to cast spells, heal the sick, see into the future, predict or control the weather, and seek answers to burning questions. Shamans are important people in many human communities, especially those that live closely with nature, such as the Inuits of the Arctic and tribes of the Amazon rainforest. They share a belief that all things in nature have a spirit, and that these spirits can affect human lives and actions. For example, when people need to hunt animals for food, shamans might speak with the spirits of the animals, asking permission to hunt them. If the animal spirits are properly respected, they will willingly allow themselves to be killed. Shamans are very mystical and might communicate with the spirits through music, dance, drawing, or symbols in order to enter the spirit world and gain knowledge or seek answers to questions such as how to heal someone who is sick. They will sometimes need to leave their body. To do this, the shaman will normally go into a trance, allowing their own spirit to fly free of their body. Gift or curse? Let's look at that friendly little guy. Not just anyone can become a shaman. You either have to be the child of a shaman and inherit their power, or be especially chosen by the spirits. Often people are chosen in their youth during a serious illness. In the course of the illness, they are visited by spirits and given special knowledge. The training for a shaman, when they learn to visit the spirits and understand what the spirits tell them, can be long and arduous. They may experience terrifying visions as they undergo the transformation. Most shamans are men, but female shamans do exist. Shamans usually work for the good of their people, but even so, their great knowledge and power sets them apart from ordinary men and women, and they are more often feared or kept at a distance. Okay, it says left. This is it right here. A shaman from a Siberian tribe uses bells on his costume and a hand drum to make music during a ceremonial dance. Let's check out this little guy here. This Inuit mask was carved for a shaman to wear. It shows how the shaman could see inside the body to cure sickness. Inuit people live in the Arctic region of North America. Okay. let's see, fantastic fact. Shamanism is one of the oldest human beliefs that can be traced back at least 20,000 years. Okay. Nature worshippers. It says to the right, a follower of Wicca is performing a ritual here. Spellcasting and rituals are an important part of the Wiccan practice. Okay. Nature worshippers, not just people living closely with nature, have a strong connection with the natural and spirit worlds. Followers of a religion called Wicca in Europe, North America, and elsewhere are worshippers of nature in the form of a god and goddess. Wiccans sometimes also call themselves witches, but this modern witchcraft is very different from the black magic feared in medieval times. Wiccans do not practice any black arts, sorcery used for dark, harmful purposes, but strongly believe in the hidden power of the mind to do good. There are more Wiccan witches active in the world today than ever before in history, probably 130,000 in the United States alone. Okay, that was about shamans. And we are done with this chapter, it looks like. We've got another map here. Evil spirits, demons, and the undead. Now, again, I'm just going to read the text up here. I'm just going to scroll over the map here, because I don't know what I'm supposed to do here, to be honest. Because I don't want to take too much time doing this. But anyways. Okay, it says here, shambling mummies brought back to life after thousands of years, terrifying rotting corpses leaving their graves and walking among the living. This is the stuff of nightmares in Hollywood movies. Humans have an endless fascination with the cheating of death by whatever means, using magic and spells, drinking blood, or returning in a ghostly form. Then there are the creatures that personify evil. Demons, werewolves, and evil spirits. Stories of such beings are common in all cultures. So are they real or just a product of universal human fears? And we're just going to... I'm not going to read these. I'm just going to zoom in on these. It's probably kind of blurry. Okay, yeah, kind of blurry, but oh well. Okay, so let's start with vampires. Oh, yeah, we're getting into the contemporary here. Vampires. Okay, it says, vampires are characters straight out of most of our most horrifying dreams. They are the undead, unfortunate victims of vampires unfortunate victims of vampire attacks who have died but refuse to lie down, rising from their grave as at night to drink the blood of the living and keep themselves alive. Vampires can turn their victims into monsters like themselves, doomed to stalk the dark shadows for eternity. Okay, let's read about this. It says, Bram Stoker's book has inspired generations of vampire stories. Okay, and we'll read about that later. We're going to go over these pictures first. I believe that's Vlad the Impaler. Who was the original Dracula? Vlad the Impaler was a medieval mass murderer, and that's him right there, Vlad the Impaler. And this is, that's Spike and Buffy, of course. Right. U.S. television series Buffy the Vampire Slayer explored the inner psyche of the vampire. The characters were locked in a constant struggle between good and evil. Okay. And then there's this guy in the middle. Max Schreck cut a terrifying figure as a vampire in the 1922 film Nosferatu. Yeah, definitely. Okay, so let's read this. Stories of blood-drinking monsters are nothing new. Ancient Egyptians told tales of Sekhmet, a blood-gorging goddess, and the ancient Indian god Kali was another terrifying bloodsucker, complete with fangs. Hebrew tradition tells of Lilith, a revolting demon who lived in the blood of babies. There are blood-sucking characters in Greek and Roman myth, in China, Japan, India, Canada, and Africa, all have their own tales of vampire monsters. But the bloodthirsty vampires we usually think of today are night-walking, pale, gaunt figures with fang-like teeth that they use to bite the necks of their prey. These fiends were invented in the 19th century by writers of horror stories who were themselves inspired by folk tales of Eastern Europe. Let's delve a little deeper, shall we? It says here, Count Dracula. Count Dracula is the most famous vampire of all. He made his first appearance in the book written over 100 years ago, yet he still has the power to fascinate us. The book tells the story of an evil count who travels to England from his native Transylvania to terrorize two young women and their friends. Dracula makes a vampire of one girl and almost kills the other before being hunted down and destroyed by the vampire hunter, Professor Van Helsing, and his team. Bram Stoker, an Irish author, the Irish author of Dracula, apparently based the Count's appearance on his friend Henry Irving, a famous actor. The book wasn't particularly popular at first, and it wasn't until Dracula films started to be made in the 20th century that it became a classic. The novel has inspired more than 60 films, and today the vampires still provide popular material for books, films, television, series, and computer games. Okay, let's read about real-life Dracula. Bram Stoker probably got the name Dracula from Vlad III, a prince of Wallachia in present-day Romania. Almost 600 years ago, his surname was Dracula, or son of Dracul. Dracula meant dragon in Romanian at the time, and he was a very nasty piece of work. Vlad had an original way of dealing with anyone who annoyed him. He would impale them on a pointed stake, leaving them to die in agony. He carried out these punishments on a vast scale, sometimes by the hundreds or thousands. He even had the stakes arranged in patterns, and was said to have once held a dinner party in the middle of a forest of impaled victims. Wow, that's fascinating. We've got time for one more, I think, so let's go to Mummies. And then maybe zombies or something. I don't know. But that'll be next time. Let's see. Mummies. Let's go about the fascinating facts first. It wasn't only people who were mummified by the ancient Egyptians. More than 1 million animal mummies had also been discovered. They included bulls, monkeys, birds, dogs, cats, fish, and even the occasional hippopotamus. So I guess they embalmed animals too. That's cool. Okay, let's see here. An ancient tomb is opened. The mummy inside is awoken from a long sleep of death and wreaks terrible revenge on those who dare to disturb it. It makes for a great story, doesn't it? But the idea that an Egyptian mummy comes to life, can come back to life was invented by Hollywood filmmakers. Yeah. Okay, let's see here. Okay, this is an actual mummy, I think. And it says, left the preservation of the unidentified mummy found near Cairo is so good that the features are still clearly defined. Okay, let's read this and get this taken care of. A mummy is any dead body that is preserved instead of rotting away. Mummification can happen naturally. For instance, if a corpse is buried in a very dry condition, or artificially with the use of various drying and embalming techniques. The ancient Egyptians believed that after death, the soul, or ka, of the dead person traveled to the afterlife, where it would live happily, much as it had done in life. Rich or important people in particular were mummified and buried with all the possessions they might need. Mummification wasn't only done in ancient Egypt. Artificially preserved mummies have also been found in South America and Europe. Okay, let's talk about the mummy's curse. One of the most famous Egyptian mummies was that of the boy pharaoh Tutankhamun, discovered in 1922 by Howard Carter and Lord Carnarvon. Despite huge public interest, Carter refused to release any details to the newspaper, so they started making things up. One rumor was about a curse promising death to those who entered the pharaoh's tomb. When Lord Carnarvon died just 6 weeks later, closely followed by 2 other people linked to the dig, the curse story took off, but Howard Carter was the first person to enter the tomb, strongly dismissed the idea, and died of natural causes 17 years later. It says here, Howard Carter kneeling takes a first glimpse into Tutankhamun's tomb. Okay. Now, here we have a movie poster called The Mummy's Curse. Right. In the 1950s and 60s, Hammer, the famous horror movie studio, made several films featuring a bandaged mummy of a shambling, murderous monster. More recently, The Mummy 1999 and its sequels have used computer-generated effects to create the most terrifying mummy yet. Okay. Here's how to make an ancient Egyptian mummy. First of all, wash and dry the body. You need to work quickly before it starts to decompose. The body won't need the gray, slushy brain. It serves no purpose. Shove a special hook up the corpse's nose and into the skull. Whisk it around to liquefy the brain so you can pull it out. Pour it out. Pour it out. Fill the skull with resin. Okay, this is going to get a little bit graphic. I'm sorry, guys. You need to take out the lungs, liver, stomach, and intestines. Cut the body open and remove these. Cover them with natron, a drying salt, for 40 days. Leave the heart, as this is the organ used for thinking, and the body will need it in the afterlife. Wash the body cavity out with wine and add some natron. Leave for 40 days. Check your removed organs when they are completely dried out. Put them into special canopic jars to be stored with the body. After 40 days in natron, your body should also be ready. The skin will be shriveled up and wrinkled, so it will need to be rubbed with perfumed oils to soften it up a bit. Fill the body cavity with anything you have to hand. Sawdust or old rags is fine. You should then make the finishing touches, such as replacing the eyeballs, which will have shriveled away in the natron. Small onions are good for this. You can fill any cracks or hollow in the skin with mud. Put protectors over the fingers and toes to stop them from getting broken. Now you're ready for wrapping. You will need lots of linen strips. Start with the head and work your way down, sealing the wrappings with resin as you go. You will need about 20 layers, and the entire process may take up to 2 weeks. Place a few lucky charms called amulets between the bandages as you wrap. These will protect the mummy from harm. Finally, wrap the mummy in one large canvas sheet and bind firmly. Your mummy is ready to be put in its coffin. And I think that's where we're going to call it quits here. In the next one, we'll talk about zombies and golems. So what else is here? Ghosts, deathly spirits, demons. Oh, I remember that picture. And I don't know if we'll get to it all the way through it, but hey, maybe we'll get to the end of this chapter next time. Anyways, we've been reading from Fantasmagoria by Julia Bruce. If you like this content, make sure you like and subscribe and ring the bell so you know when I upload. Also, if you want to support me in any way, all information will be in the description below. And as always, thanks for watching, everyone, and have a great day.